Hello lovelies and welcome to today's video. My name is Alya and I'm so glad you stopped by. Today is a very special video to do with Tichels. I haven't done one of these in a long while and it's about time. But more than that, over the weekend we had Shavuot, which is a beautiful festival which commemorates receiving the Torah, the Ten Commandments. And we were very lucky to spend the time in our local Chabad house and with beautiful warm people, with a gorgeous family, and you know, just really feeling all the beautiful energy from the weekend. So what better time to bring back a Tichel video to this channel, and I've got 3 looks for you guys and a little bit on why I associate my head covering with the festival of Shavuot, and also a little bit about my story with head covering. So really fun video today, so I hope you stick around and have a look at a few Tichel looks. This one is the one from the introduction. All I have done is I've wrapped this Tichel around and just twisted it through here. Then I've taken the top one, the top twist, and laid it out over the top of my head. Next, I'm taking this one here and wrapping it again, same sort of twist, just crisscross over the side, bringing it over to the top, and then using these beautiful tassels right behind the knot here, and just laying them out in a pretty way. Now, as I've said 1,000 times before on this channel, the same Tichel will never lay down the same way twice. So tassels in a way is really fun because it's an extra feature, and it covers out any oopsies or any little folds that you didn't really want to be there. So this is something that I would wear very quickly if I wanted to cover for some reason, and I didn't really have much time. And all I have underneath is a high ponytail. My hair is twisted around the scrunchie and I've just pinned it in place with a little shark clip. Very simple, very straightforward. I just wanted to quickly show you guys how I did the introductions Tichel. So without any further ado, we'll get into the story of my association with Shavuos and some more Tichel looks. In 1957, at a Farbrengen for the holiday of Shavuot, the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Chabad Rebbe, took the discussion about head covering in a brand new direction. He spoke of one of the most essential aspects of a Jewish woman's effect on her family is her modesty. Now let's discuss for just a minute what modesty means. This day and age, modesty means, you know, not having your cleavage hanging out and maybe, you know, making sure that nobody can see your underwear. That's kind of about it. And to be honest, most kids I see walking around the street these days, their t-shirts, my bra covers more of me than their t-shirts covers of them, and I'm not a prude in any way. It's just the way it is. That's what the fashion is, these little sports bras and things, you know, whatever. It is what it is. I have zero judgment at all for the fashion or people's individual choices, but I do have a lot of personal choice, as do they. I hope it's their personal choice and not, you know, some sort of peer pressure or fashion pressure or anything like that that's creating their choices or making them choose the way they do. When the Rebbe spoke at this Farbrengen, he quoted Psalms 45:14, said, "The entire glory of the king's daughter is within." So thus we find, and I'm reading this from a website, thus we find in the Talmud, Yoma 47a, concern the exceptional modesty of Kimchit. Kimchit had 7 sons, and who merited to serve as high priest. The sages asked her, "What have you done to merit this?" She answered them, "The rafters of my house have never seen the plaits of my hair." This is just one of very many resources that I found on my journey to covering, and that really spoke to me. The reason that Jewish women cover is because there are several sources, as this one, that state that a woman is very embarrassed to be uncovered. One way of determine whether she was an adulterer or whether she was somehow immodest was to uncover the hair. If we go back in history, many sources will show that hair covering is a community norm throughout the ages. As recently as now, you know, we see a lot of beautiful videos here on YouTube that show you how to lay down a wig and melt the mesh, things like that. So it's a very commonplace practice socially. It's a norm in society even today. So why specifically for the Jewish people? So we have this resource that says about, you know, meriting such success of her sons to her modesty. We have another resource, which is probably the one that's most commonly referenced when it comes to head covering, and that is when a woman was found alone at home with a man, the judge uncovered her hair to embarrass her, to test her modesty, to test whether in fact she was an adulterer. Obviously these sort of things wouldn't stand at the moment in this time and age, but it has throughout the ages. Another resource that I read was discussing that there was a social court. A woman took a man to court because he forced her to uncover in the marketplace, and this caused her such embarrassment that she was actually able to sue, you know, whatever the suing of the time was, him for this act. There are so many resources. For me personally, I started covering at a time when I really found my way to connect to Hashem, my way to connect to God, and I found it really important as a very important mitzvah, a very important deed, as a way to raise my children. It's not the only one by a long shot. I think that the prayers we say in the morning together is one of our biggest ones. The Shabbat meal, the Friday night meal and Saturday lunch meal that we have together is a big one. We celebrate the Yom Tovim, the festivals, big one. We have a very close connection to many beautiful friends of mine in the Chabad community, in the Jewish community, Orthodox Jewish community here in Melbourne. I personally spend a lot of time in my Chabad house. The boys study in the Chabad house on a Wednesday afternoon. There are a lot of things that we do for me to make sure that they understand their Jewish identity, because I had a really long journey to discover mine. I always knew I was Jewish. I was always proud to be Jewish. I went to a Jewish primary school, but somewhere along the way that all didn't make sense. There were a lot of unanswered questions, and I found my way to Orthodoxy or to the Chabad community because my questions were severely unanswered. And I also came to a time where it affected my marriage. I'm not speaking to divorce or to marriage here on this channel. I am not an expert. I wish there were more experts that would guide us along our way. I trust that there is a big plan for all of us, and Hashem knows exactly where we need to be and where we need to be there, and presents us with choices. I feel within my heart that that being on the right journey spiritually within myself means that I will be able to make a better home in a spiritual sense. It has actually brought me a lot of peace. It has definitely made me a much more suited mother, loving mother, and it gives me a lot of guidance and a lot of support, both spiritually and mentally, knowing that there is so many others out there on the same path as me. Now this might mean something else for somebody else, but I have found my support system and my truth, both inner and outer truth, through this path. And I hope one day, if I do remarry, because I am divorced, then that will give me light and guidance in that journey too, should it be suitable to have that journey. So these days my covering happens only on spiritual occasions, because I felt that I only had just started covering right before my marriage ended, and I associated this mitzvah very strongly with being married. And I knew for myself that I needed to not do it regularly, only do it when it was important and true to my heart, until I was married again. So on a daily basis, what I'll usually do is a half tichel or nothing at all, and I'm comfortable with that. It is my expression to say that that part of my life, that chapter, is over, and good, happy that that's the case, very content with the fact that that's the case. But I do have two amazing boys who I am 100% responsible for, and their guidance and their spiritual guidance needs to be nourished with certain mitzvot. So when we go to shul, or if there is some sort of, for example, lighting the candles on Shabbos, I will somehow present that covering mitzvah in some form. One day, like I said, if I am to be married, then a sheitel or a tichel is going to be, of course, a full-time appearance. That today would be my choice. So there we go. Let's do another look. We know this mitzvah is not of biblical origins. We know that at Mount Sinai, when we were presented with the 10 Commandments and given 613 rule mitzvot, deeds, whether to do or not to do, head covering wasn't one of them. But we do know that over time it was an extremely important part of women's modesty and keeping the home, and that is most definitely one of the commandments. I have been loving bringing tichels up like this, because when I do a half tichel I do the same thing, so it's just a very natural hand movement for me these days. I'm just going to spread this one out a little bit to cover the folds that it created, because it's a very thick pashmina that I was gifted by a very kind lady. and I'm just going to tie it at the back in an actual knot, leave the short tail out, and bring the long tail to the front. Give it a few twists, and I'm just going to connect it probably at the front. Looks better. Look at that beautiful asymmetry. Is so nice on a tichel, don't you think? And I've also got this beautiful tail at the back, just spreading it out, and there we go. You know, the Mishnah, or the rule for ketubah, or for the marriage license, does imply that when you appear in public in a behavior that gives rise to need for divorce, one of the descriptions is having loose flowing hair. So why do we then see a lot of, especially Chabad women, especially Orthodox women, wearing shaitels, wearing wigs? One idea, and this also stems back to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the last Rebbe, who really pushed for the practice of wearing wigs specifically. It's an interesting thing to read about, because I was very little when he passed away. I didn't have any connection. My parents didn't have any connection to this community, and so I didn't grow up with his talks and his beautiful speeches and things like that. But I luckily live in a time when he lived in a time where a lot of things were recorded, and I have seen many videos and read many scripts. Scribes recorded from him, and I do find that the main basis, or my interpretation of the main basis for his push for shaitels, is the ease it is to take off a tichel, is number one. Number two is to fit into society. He felt, and he's probably very accurate even in 2022 for this one, that when you wear a scarf, that is an obvious statement of some sort of practice. Amount of times I've been asked if I have cancer or something, because why would you wear a headscarf? What are you covering? There are a lot of religious associations, so that part's obvious, and that might lead to conversations and embarrassment and prying into your personal space. Whereas when you wear a shaitel, it's much more natural. It's much more concealing. It's much more socially acceptable. When you're walking down the street, no one's going to know whether that's hair or a wig. A lot of wigs these days are beautiful, natural, and look better than natural hair. And you can get it professionally laid roughly once a month or so, and it will last. So it's a lot less maintenance. Tichels, you've got to tie them several times a day sometimes, it's true. So the temptation to take off a tichel and the ease to take off a tichel is a lot easier than to remove a shaitel. Probably true. The mess underneath a scarf with your hair, I would personally not be tempted to remove a scarf in public. I would need to redress my hair, redo my hair if I was to wear a scarf. When I wear a half scarf, I keep it on the whole time. For me personally, I don't find that is a personal temptation of mine. If I'm wearing a scarf, I'm wearing my scarf. It's the same as my shoes. I don't take off my high heels, and I don't take off my scarf. I don't remove my makeup in public. These are things that I've left the house with, and they're going to come home with me. That's just me personally though, but I do understand that on a greater scale for most women that there could be this social temptation to modify the tichel, as I have done, truly as I have done with my divorce. I've chosen that most days I either don't have one or I have just a like a snood, and that's fine, because I've made a conscious choice. I know what I'm doing. It's not a social push that made me do it. It was my kind of personal practice, but I can understand, I can completely relate to how that would be the case. Whereas with a tichel, with a wig, you're not going to wear a wig one day and then just not the next day. It doesn't make as much sense as with scarves that you change every day. It feels more of a fashion accessory than what it does a way of life. I agree with that notion. It's not for me personally, but I do agree with that notion. And the beautiful thing is that today you can get so many affordable, gorgeous looking wigs, especially in the States. I see all these beautiful women laying down these amazing wigs, a lot of them synthetic, and they change, and they have 5 new ones a week, and it's fantastic because it's at that stage where technology, sewing machines, electricity allows it to be so. Not everything is handmade anymore, and it just means that you have more freedom of choice, which is lovely. And if you can afford it, and you can get beautiful European hair, handmade, individually stitched shaitel that will last you a long time. I mean, they can cost like $5,000 here in Australia. So amazing if you can do that and if you can maintain that, but you don't have to, is the point. And you do always have the option of a scarf or a hat or some sort of a head covering, especially like if you're going to go to the pool, for example. You're not going to wear a wig to the pool. You're not going to wear a wig to the beach. You're not going to wear a wig if you're cooking, because that would ruin the fibers. You're not going to wear a wig in a lot of situations, whereas a scarf, much more practical. Anyway, well, that is my story. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the 3 looks we did today. Very simple, because that's how I keep it these days. I keep it very quick and simple. I enjoy the act of covering. I really do love the feeling of it, the whole, same as makeup, same as all the other choices I make with the way I appear to the world. And there's a certain connection with that, because I do associate it with making these videos, lighting candles, going to shul, religious practice, all that sort of stuff. So it does bring a lot of spiritual comfort and light. So I hope you did like this video. I hope you leave me a like, leave me a comment, tell me what you know about the hair covering in your community or in other communities. It's very interesting to learn the practice worldwide, and definitely make sure you subscribe. Head over to Instagram for more videos, more photos, definitely lots of doggy reels and kitty reels and lots of fun things of what we get up to as a family. And I can't wait to see you on the next one. Bye!